Karoline Leavitt just wrapped up a press conference that should set off alarm bells for anyone who is paying attention to what the Trump administration is doing ahead of the 2026 midterms. Now, after a series of escalating events the past couple of weeks, the legacy media finally seems ready to accept that genuine election interference might occur on behalf of the administration, as opposed to the president just casting doubt on the election results, which is a favorite term they like to use. And their questions today at the press conference reflected that. Unfortunately, the answers they were able to elicit from Karoline Leavitt did nothing to soothe people's concerns about the elections being free and fair this fall. Now, at this press conference, she was asked a number of questions about ICE deployments and the Fulton County, Georgia raid and the president's recent calls for nationalizing elections. And we're going to walk through these. And the fact that at every single turn, we cannot get a yes or no answer from Karoline Leavitt on things that any normal administration would be able to say, of course not, or yes, definitively to, without having to dance around it. And it just feels like the administration is creating little open spaces and gray areas for themselves to say, well, we never actually ruled that out. And let's start with the question she got about Tulsi Gabbard being present at the raid of the Fulton County election office last week. And again, should have been able to answer this question clearly and couldn't. Let's see what she was asked and how she answered. Let's take a look.
Did President Trump himself ever ask DNI Gabbard to head down to Fulton County, Georgia?
The president was asked and answered that question just yesterday. I've seen a lot of the media in this room get very caught up with the semantics of why Tulsi Gabbard is there. I will tell you why, and the president agrees with this, because election security is essential to national security. And as the director of national intelligence, it is a part of Ms. Gabbard's role to make sure that American elections are free of foreign interference and that American elections are safe and secure.
First of all, this question is not about semantics. Whether the president directed his DNI director to go to a place and raid their election office to do his bidding is not semantics. That should be answered. And that is something that the American people deserve to know is, did a direct order come from Donald Trump, go to Tulsi Gabbard and instruct her to go to Fulton County and raid the offices? Because it's important. And also this whole idea of, well, she was sent down there because we care about election integrity and not having election interference. Well, guess what? The election interference should not be taking place by the person who is running the national intelligence infrastructure of our country. That is not what we are talking about when we talk about election security. If the point is for Tulsi Gabbard to show that the federal government can tamper in our own elections, then I guess she's passing that test with flying colors. But the fact that we can't get a straightforward answer on this is something that we're going to need answers on, especially if Democrats take back the House in the fall and are able to launch an investigation. Now, next up, Karoline Leavitt was asked about the president's proposal to nationalize elections and the fact that he gave this NBC interview last night where he yet again asked for the federal takeover of elections in places that he considered corrupt, which of course all happen to be swing states. And when asked why the president keeps pushing for the nationalization of elections, this is what Karoline Leavitt had to say. Let's take a look.
At one point in the interview, the president said that he believes states are accumulating the votes for who wins the election. He says if they, meaning the states, can't do it honestly and can't be done properly and timely, then something else has to happen. What did he mean by that? Is he suggesting that the federal government count votes in elections?
What the president is suggesting, and I just spoke to him about this, is that Republicans and Democrats in Congress should pass the Save America Act. This piece of legislation is going to ensure that states are abiding by federal election law by removing non-citizens from their voter rolls.
There are a couple things here. First of all, I'd love for somebody to find me the clip. I have never heard the president say anything about passing the SAVE Act. He's talked about voter ID the past couple of days because clearly they're pushing him on it. But nothing he is suggesting has anything to do with the SAVE Act. The SAVE Act obviously does not contain any language nationalizing our elections. This claim of getting illegal immigrants off of our voter rolls is insane as well. There are not illegal immigrants on voter rolls in our country. You have to be a citizen to vote in state and national elections. That there is none of that. They are creating a problem that doesn't exist because they are looking for excuses to tamper with the election. And this claim of, well, there are illegal immigrants on all the voter rolls. First of all, not true. And second of all, how in the instance of the administration trying to take control of the Minnesota voter rolls, we can't trust them not to drum up lies and fake voter registrations to push their agenda to justify taking control of our elections. So because this administration has no credibility, they are pushing a lie that we already know they are going to spin up and try to claim is the truth. Another interesting fact about this is the interview where she says, I just talked to him and all he wants to do is pass the SAVE Act. Let's rewind to the NBC interview yesterday and see what he actually said.
We can't allow cheating in elections. Now, if we need to put in federal controls as opposed to state controls, remember this, they're really an agent. They're really accumulating the votes for who wins an election. If they can't do it honestly and it can't be done properly and timely, then something else has to happen.
Now, something that is so interesting here is obviously we're sick of talking about the 2020 election at this point. Donald Trump lost it. He still can't get over it. He's obviously obsessed with it to this day, and specifically obsessed with Georgia as one of the places that he lost. When we've litigated this so many times over, and studies have been done, and we've been shown time and again that the amount of voter fraud that has ever taken place is 0.0000001% of every election. Small handfuls here and there. And guess what? It seems like more voter fraud comes from Republicans than it does from Democrats. I mean, here is a recent article from the fall of a turning point leader pleading guilty to election fraud. This is not a Democratic issue. Those types of things happen a lot. There were a lot of instances about that, even after the 2024 election, when Trump won, where there were people getting arrested for voting on behalf of their dead parent or their parent who was, incapacitated for Donald Trump. Republicans doing that. So this whole concept of it being a Democratic problem, we seem to see more instances of Republicans doing it than Democrats in the minuscule times it even happens. Now, after all of this, there was still the most chilling moment of this whole press conference, which is Karoline Leavitt being asked about Steve Bannon talking about ICE being at polling places, which is something I talked about in the video yesterday. And I am glad somebody asked the question. I am deeply troubled by the answer. Let's take a look at what Karoline had to say.
Thank you, Caroline. Steve Bannon recently said, quote, "We're going to have ICE surround the polls come November." Is that something that the president is considering?
That's not something I've ever heard the president consider, no.
You can guarantee to the American public that ICE will not be around polling locations or voting locations in November?
I can't guarantee that an ICE agent won't be around a polling location in November. I mean, that's frankly a very silly hypothetical question. But what I can tell you is I haven't heard the president discuss any formal plans to put ICE outside of polling locations. It's a disingenuous question.
Now, a normal administration and a normal press secretary would be able to say, of course, that is not happening. But her refusal to rule it out tells you exactly where this is heading. And the fact that she's pretending that this is a ludicrous question, guess what also seemed like a ludicrous question back in 2024 was that a nationalized police force was going to shoot and kill American citizens. Now that just seems to be happening on a relatively frequent basis at this point. So that gaslighting of, I can't believe you'd ask that, the her being incredulous about it is ridiculous. And second of all, if this administration had no plans to do something like that, she would have been able to say no outright today, and she chose not to. That is it for me today. If you liked what you saw in this video, throw a like on it. Follow the Demwins Media YouTube channel. Follow me at buildingthebench.substack.com, and we will keep bringing you the news as you need to see it. Thanks for watching.